If you want to advance in your calisthenics practice, you won't get around working on your shoulder mobility. If you want to advance when it comes to some of the pull-up variations like the typewriter or the archer, if you want to skin your cat or go into German hangs, you will require a massive amount of both control in your shoulder as well as flexibility. And of course, doubly so if you want to work on some of the really advanced stuff like back levers, front levers, and all that kind of business. So today I'm going to show you how you can work on your shoulder mobility when it comes to calisthenics. So you use exercises that combine both strength as well as flexibility and coordination, so you can advance without having to worry about injury risk or lack of mobility. If you're ready, let's go and have some fun. First things first, one of the most amazing exercises for our anterior chain, especially for our anterior delts and chest, will be the classic butcher's block. We're going to place just our elbows on some sort of elevation right in front of us. Grab a stick. If you don't have like a training stick, you can use a broomstick or whatever you have at home. Move into this assisted quadrupad position, and from here, first thing you have to do is push your chest down towards the floor as much as you can. Move into spinal extension in your lower back and pull your arms in as closely as possible. Extend our arms and open up our chest and shoulders even more. Hold for a couple of seconds before we move back into this bent position. Now you can either hold the stretch for up to 30 seconds statically, or you can just move through this exercise dynamically. Open up your triceps, chest and shoulders, and move the stretch all the way through your abdominals as well, depending on how far you can go into spinal extension. This will take care of some of the tension you carry in your anterior chain and will help you loosen up a little bit before we get into the more advanced exercise. This video is sponsored by YouTube's VIP, which is you. You are YouTube's VIP, the most important person on this platform. And by liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and even watching the whole thing, you're doing real charity work. Because with one full view, you get to feed a middle-aged, middle-class Austrian man for up to 10 seconds. Now that would look really great on your humanitarian resume now. Moving us to one of my favorite shoulder openers, and this one we can combine with a lot of strength dominance as well. If you have a black roll, that would be amazing. If you don't, you can use yoga blocks. If you don't have those and you are literate and have some books at home, you can use those to elevate your shoulders. Placing your shoulder blades on an elevation, and then we're gonna grab a bench right in front of us, extend our arms, and start pushing our butt down from here. And this is going to open up once again our entire anterior chain, specifically our anterior delts and our chest, as well as our triceps and the insides of our arms, releasing all sorts of tension here. And you can use this exercise in multiple ways: for spinal extension when it comes to spinal mobility, for core strength, like so. Just be very careful when going through those movements, and you can increase the resistance by extending your legs. You can hold the lowest point in the stretch 20 to 30 seconds, release it like so, and repeat once more. This is going to help us also build some control and strength surrounding our shoulder and in our arms in an extended position overhead, which is very amazing for people who want to work on their handstand, for instance. And before we move on to our stick-assisted exercises, the most important shoulder mobility exercise you will be doing are dead hangs. Grab onto a bar and start relaxing into a completely extended, relaxed position, especially in your shoulders, decompressing your rotator cuffs, stretching the surrounding tissue and musculature. You should be working up to holding 60 seconds, like so, in a completely relaxed manner, and then you will start working on one-sided hangs, just like so, to increase the decompression in our shoulder joint and help us lengthen those tendons and ligaments and musculature, so we can advance even more in our calisthenics shoulder work. Of course, giving us the added bonus of maximizing our forearm and grip strength, which you will use for basically everything we do in calisthenics when it comes to our upper body. And this moves us to the two preliminary pull-up variations. The first being the classic or symmetrical scapular pull-up, learning how to adduct and depress as well as abduct and elevate our scapula or our shoulder blades, which will be very important when it comes to learning how to do real pull-up movements. So we have the necessary control over our scapular and shoulder musculature way before we get into the more advanced variations and then have to correct what we didn't learn before. Taking it to the next level, the asymmetrical or unilateral scapular pull-up, now also adding scapular upward rotation, which in turn will help us with all the more advanced or unilateral pull-up exercises, which do require a massive amount of both strength as well as control in those muscles so we can have good form. Moving us to our stick-assisted mobility cluster, from a neutral position at shoulder height, going into scapular abduction as well as adduction. Pull your shoulder blades together and extend. Pull together and extend. Moving into an overhead position, scapular depression, scapular elevation. Scapular depression and elevation. And from a neutral position once more, moving into scapular upward rotation and then into scapular downward rotation. Upward rotation and downward rotation. This is one of the most important things you will learn when it comes to shoulder mobility and can make or break your calisthenics progress if you're not careful. Moving us to complete rotations or dislocates. And now we're not just haphazardly going through the motions. We are using everything we learned in the past couple of exercises, going into upward rotation, abduction, elevation, adduction, depression, downward rotation, and combining all of those in one single rotational exercise, opening up our entire anterior chain and strengthening our shoulders and the surrounding musculature, specifically our traps. And this moves us to asymmetrical or unilateral rotations, one arm always fixed, the other going through an entire rotation, and then switching, moving forward before we reverse into the other direction. Backwards with one arm, forward with the other arm, and repeating, adding some more control and mind muscle connection through those unilateral movement patterns. With the next exercise, starting in an overhead position, and we want to move as closely to our back as possible, extending our arms downwards and pulling our shoulder blades down, as well as extending above our head and pulling our shoulder blades up once again into elevation, all the way down, all the way up. Our final exercise, with the stick above our traps fixated there, we're going to move with an extended back into lateral spinal extension, lengthening our lats and our triceps on one side, releasing any sort of tension surrounding our shoulder before we move into the other direction. Not only does this help us with shoulder mobility, but also with spinal mobility, which is insanely important and neglected by most people. Consider it a bonus. You're absolutely welcome. And when it comes to the necessary mobility you will require for exercises such as German hangs, back levers, and skin the cat, the best thing you can do is actually utilize that exercise in a tucked position. Now, if this is the first time for you doing it, then look for some elevation you can use to step onto, because we want to be as careful as possible. Tuck in, roll over, and then slowly just release into this hanging position. Have the elevation close enough so you can place your feet on the floor. If anything happens, lower down into as much as a stretch as possible and raise your feet just like so. Hold 10, 20, 30, release, hold, and repeat once more. And what you can also do, which is very, very effective, instead of just hanging, we want to use all the control in our scapula and shoulder that we learned about to roll out of it and then roll into the stretch once more, going through tiny, controlled movement patterns, just like so, which are going to combine a ton of strength with a ton of flexibility. If you're having any sort of real pain in your joint, discomfort is absolutely fine when you're working on your mobility. Pain, absolutely not. Just dial it back a little bit, maybe take the exercise out and take a short break before you advance. By far one of my favorite mobility exercises when it comes to overhead mobility for our arms, as well as thoracic mobility in our upper back. We're going to get into a tucked handstand position. We're just gonna walk up like so, keep both our knees as well as our hips bent, move forward with our shoulders, and then press our chest towards that wall, opening up our shoulders and chest, holding for a second or two, and releasing that tension. It doesn't have to be a long range of motion, just pressing, opening up your chest, going into full extension in your spine, and then releasing that tension before we move into the next repetition, amazing thoracic opener, amazing mobility for our spine, and amazing mobility for our shoulders, and of course, amazing for building overhead strength. And this will help you with the thing that most people struggle with, which is being fully straight in your upper body and in your shoulders with your arm extended above your head. And that's basically it. Not just flexibility work, but true mobility work, combining strength with endurance, flexibility and coordination, and using as many different exercises as possible to give our shoulders as many benefits as we can, and to bulletproof our rotator cuff and our shoulders and all the surrounding musculature. So pick a handful of those exercises at your own level. You can do 60 seconds for each dynamic exercise. If you're holding any static stretches, hold them for 20 to 30 seconds, take a 10 to 20 second break, and then repeat them. And your routine shouldn't take longer than 15 to 20 minutes. And if you can do it 2 to 3 times a week, this would be absolutely amazing, and you will see some amazingly fast results. Have a good one. Captain Cairo. Peace out.